The red sun of Kepler 442 cast long shadows across the barren moon as Captain Marcus Reed adjusted his scanner. 3 days of searching, the crash site had yielded nothing but twisted metal and empty hope. The distress signal had gone silent 12 hours ago, and protocol demanded he return to his ship, but something deep in his gut told him to keep looking. Marcus wiped sweat from his forehead, his environmental suit working overtime in the thin atmosphere. The wreckage stretched across a quarter-mile of rocky terrain, scattered pieces of what had once been an elegant vessel. Not human design, that much was certain. The curved hull fragments and crystalline components spoke of alien engineering far beyond Earth's current capabilities. A glint of silver caught his eye near a cluster of larger debris. Marcus approached carefully, his boots crunching on the gravelly surface. What he found made his breath catch in his throat. She lay partially buried under a sheet of twisted metal, her body motionless except for the shallow rise and fall of her chest. Her skin held a pale blue luminescence that seemed to pulse with her heartbeat. Long silver hair, matted with something that looked like blood, spread around her head like a halo. She wore garments that appeared to be woven from starlight itself. Now, torn and stained, Marcus knelt beside her, his medical training kicking in. He checked for obvious injuries, finding a deep gash along her left arm and what appeared to be burns across her shoulder. Her breathing was labored, and when he gently lifted her eyelid, he saw eyes the color of deep ocean water. "Hey there," he whispered, though he doubted she could understand him. "I'm going to help you." She stirred slightly at the sound of his voice, her lips moving soundlessly. Marcus carefully lifted the metal debris away from her body, noting that her anatomy appeared mostly humanoid despite the obvious differences. She was beautiful in an otherworldly way that made his heart race. As he prepared to move her, her eyes fluttered open. The moment their gazes met, she gasped and tried to pull away, panic flooding her features. She spoke rapidly in a musical language he didn't recognize, her voice filled with fear. "It's okay," Marcus said softly, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. "I want to help you." She studied his face intently, as if searching for something. Slowly, her panic began to fade, replaced by confusion and exhaustion. When Marcus reached out again, she didn't pull away. Lifting her carefully in his arms, Marcus was struck by how light she felt. As if her bones were hollow like a bird's, she pressed her face against his chest, and he could feel her trembling. Whatever had happened to her ship, whatever had brought her to this desolate place, she was alone and hurt. His shelter was a 20-minute walk across the uneven terrain. With each step, Marcus found himself more curious about this mysterious woman. Her people had clearly mastered interstellar travel, yet she seemed as fragile as spun glass in his arms. Who was she? What had she been running from? As they reached his temporary base, she spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. Though he couldn't understand the words, the gratitude in her tone was unmistakable. Marcus looked down at her pale, luminescent face and felt something shift inside his chest. He had always been a practical man, focused on his mission and his duty to the exploration corps, but holding this wounded stranger, seeing the trust beginning to bloom in her ocean blue eyes, Marcus realized that some things were more important than protocol. Some discoveries changed everything. The shelter's doors sealed behind them with a soft hiss, and Marcus carried her toward the medical bay, unaware that his life had just taken a turn toward something extraordinary. Healing touch, the medical scanner hummed quietly as Marcus examined the alien woman's injuries. She lay on the treatment table, her luminescent skin creating an ethereal glow in the sterile white room. The deeper cuts required immediate attention, and he worked with practiced precision, cleaning and treating each wound. She watched his every movement with those remarkable ocean blue eyes, no longer fearful but intensely curious. When the antiseptic stung, she would tense slightly, but she never pulled away or made a sound of complaint. Her stoic endurance impressed him. "This might hurt a little," Marcus warned as he prepared to stitch the gash on her arm. She tilted her head at his words, and he realized she was beginning to associate his tone with his intentions, even if she couldn't understand the language, as the needle pierced her skin. She inhaled sharply, and her free hand instinctively reached for his arm. The moment her fingers touched his skin, Marcus felt a warm, tingling sensation spread up his arm. Her eyes widened in surprise. She quickly pulled her hand away. "It's all right," he said gently, offering his hand palm up. "You can hold on if it helps." Hesitantly, she placed her hand in his. The tingling sensation returned, but with it came something else. Images flashed through his mind, not his own memories, but hers. He saw a world of crystal spires and floating gardens, beings of light dancing through the air, and then darkness, violence, and her desperate flight through space. She gasped and tried to pull away, but Marcus held her hand gently. "I saw it," he whispered. "Your world. What happened to you?" Her eyes filled with what looked like tears, though they shimmered with an opalescent quality, unlike human tears. She spoke in her musical language, her voice filled with sorrow and loss. Marcus continued his work, stitching her wounds while she held his hand. With each touch, he caught glimpses of her memories. Her name was Zafira. She was someone important on her world, someone who had been forced to run. The details remained fuzzy, but the emotions were crystal clear. Pain, fear, loneliness, and now cautious hope. When he finished bandaging her arm, she sat up slowly, testing her range of motion. The pain was obviously much less now, and she looked at Marcus with something approaching wonder. She touched her bandages, then looked at his hands, and finally met his eyes. "Zafira," she said softly, placing her hand over her heart. "Marcus," he replied, mimicking her gesture. She smiled then, the first smile he had seen from her, and it transformed her face completely. The fear and pain seemed to melt away, replaced by a radiance that had nothing to do with her natural luminescence. Over the next few hours, as her strength returned, they began to communicate through gestures and simple words. She had a quick mind for language, picking up basic English with surprising speed. Marcus found himself drawn to her intelligence as much as her otherworldly beauty. When evening came, he prepared a simple meal, not sure what her physiology could handle. She accepted the food gratefully, though he noticed she only ate the fruits and vegetables, leaving the protein untouched. Another piece of the puzzle that was shout. As they sat across from each other in the shelter's small living area, Marcus felt the weight of the day settling over him. Tomorrow, he would need to contact his ship, report the rescue. But looking at Zafira as she struggled to form English words, her face animated with the effort. He found himself reluctant to think about tomorrow. She was trying to tell him something. Gesturing to the stars visible through the shelter's small window. "Home," she said in accented English, then shook her head sadly. "No home now." Marcus reached across the small table and took her hand. "You're safe here," he said. She squeezed his fingers, and again he felt that warm tingling, that sense of connection deeper than words. Whatever forces had driven her from her world, whatever dangers she was fleeing, Marcus knew he wouldn't let anything happen to her. 3 days had passed since Marcus found Zafira, and their communication had improved remarkably. She possessed an extraordinary ability to learn, absorbing English with a speed that amazed him. More than that, their connection seemed to deepen with each shared touch, each moment of understanding that passed between them. On this evening, as the red sun set behind the jagged mountains, they sat together outside the shelter. Zafira had insisted on leaving the confines of the building, claiming she needed to feel the open air. Marcus understood. After being trapped in her crashed ship, even temporary walls might feel like a prison. "Tell me about your world," Marcus said. Watching the way the fading light played across her luminescent skin, Zafira was quiet for a long moment, her fingers tracing patterns in the dust. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a weight of sadness that made his chest ache. "Nexari is beautiful," she began, her English now clear despite the musical accent. "Crystal cities that touch the sky, gardens that float on air currents. My people live in harmony with light itself." "It sounds amazing," Marcus said. "Why did you leave?" Her hands stilled in the dust, and she looked up at the emerging stars. "I did not choose to leave. I was forced to run." Marcus waited, sensing there was much more to the story. Zafira seemed to be gathering courage to continue. "I am Princess of Nexari," she said finally, "daughter of the Light Council. But my father made arrangement without asking me. Marriage to Prince Vorkane of the Shadow Realm." The name sent a chill through Marcus, though he didn't understand why. "You didn't want to marry him?" Zafira's eyes flashed with anger and fear. "Vorkane is cruel. His people conquer worlds, enslave others. My father thought alliance would protect us, but I knew truth. Vorkane wants our light magic for himself. Wants to use it for war?" She stood and began pacing, her agitation causing her skin to pulse brighter. "I refused marriage. Tried to make father understand, but he said duty comes before feelings. Said I must sacrifice for our people." Marcus rose and stepped closer to her. "So you ran?" "I ran," she confirmed, her voice breaking slightly. "I stole fastest ship and fled into space. Vorkane's hunters followed. They damaged my ship, forced me to crash here. The pieces were falling into place now. The elegant ship, her obvious terror when she first saw him, her reluctance to be found. She wasn't just an alien in need of rescue. She was a fugitive princess. They're still looking for you," Marcus said. It wasn't a question. Zafira nodded, tears shimmering in her eyes. "Always looking. Vorkane will never stop. And when they find me, ... she shuddered, unable to finish the thought. Marcus felt a surge of protective anger. "They won't find you. I won't let them." She looked at him with surprise. "You would protect me? Even knowing who I am? Knowing the danger?" Without thinking, Marcus reached for her hands. The moment their skin touched, that warm connection flowed between them, stronger now than before. Through their link, he felt her fear, her loneliness, her desperate hope. But he also felt something else. Her growing feelings for him, as powerful and confusing as his own. "Zafira," he said softly, "I don't care if you're a princess or a pauper. I don't care about intergalactic politics or arranged marriages. I care about you." Her breath caught and she stepped closer. "Marcus, you don't understand. I cannot stay here forever. They will find me, and when they do, anyone helping me will die. Then we'll face that together," he said, lifting one hand to cup her cheek. Her skin was warm and soft, the luminescence pulsing gently under his palm. Together, she repeated. As if testing the word together, he confirmed. They stood there in the growing darkness, hands linked, hearts racing. The connection between them hummed with possibilities, with feelings too deep and new to name. Marcus had never believed in love at first sight, but this felt like something even rarer. A meeting of souls across the vast emptiness of space. Zafira leaned into his touch, her eyes drifting closed. "On my world, we have saying. Light finds light, even in deepest dark. Is that what this is?" Marcus asked, his thumb tracing the curve of her cheek. "Yes," she whispered, opening her eyes to meet his. "I think that is exactly what this is." As the first stars appeared overhead, Marcus pulled her into his arms, and Zafira melted against him. Whatever tomorrow might bring, whatever dangers were hunting her across the galaxy, they had found each other in the darkness. And that had to count for something. The hunt begins. The warning came at dawn. Marcus's long-range scanner picked up 3 ships dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. They moved with predatory precision, clearly searching for something. Or someone, Zafira, Marcus called urgently, his voice cutting through the morning quiet. She appeared at his side instantly, her face already pale with understanding. She looked at the scanner display, and her luminescence dimmed with fear. "Vorkane's hunters," she whispered. "They found me." Marcus's mind raced through possibilities. His own ship was too far away to reach before the hunters arrived. The moon offered few hiding places, and his shelter would be easily detected by advanced scanners. But there was one option. The cave systems, he said, pointing toward the mountain range where his geological surveys had revealed an extensive network of tunnels. The mineral deposits might interfere with their sensors. Zafira nodded, already moving to gather essential supplies. Her movements were quick and efficient, but Marcus could see the tremor in her hands. He caught her wrist gently. "Hey," he said softly, We're going to be okay." She looked at him with those ocean blue eyes, and he saw not just fear, but guilt. "I brought this danger to you." "I should go alone." "Not happening," Marcus said firmly. "We're in this together, remember?" Before she could argue, he pulled her close and kissed her. It was meant to be quick, reassuring, but the moment their lips met, something electric passed between them. Zafira gasped against his mouth, her hands fisting in his shirt as she kissed him back with desperate intensity. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. "Whatever happens," Marcus said against her forehead. "I'm glad I found you, and I'm glad you didn't leave me in the dirt," she replied, her voice thick with emotion. They gathered what they could carry and set out for the mountains. The cave entrance was a narrow split in the rock face, barely wide enough for them to squeeze through sideways. Inside, the tunnels branched in multiple directions, creating a maze that might buy them time. Marcus led the way with a portable light, while Zafira's natural luminescence provided backup illumination. They moved deeper into the mountain, following passages that seemed to wind endlessly through the rock. "How long do we have?" Marcus asked as they paused to rest. Zafira closed her eyes, concentrating. "I can feel their scanning patterns." Maybe 2 hours before they reached this area, they resumed walking, but the weight of pursuit pressed on them both. In the darkness of the caves, their connection seemed even stronger. Marcus found himself hyper-aware of Zafira's presence beside him, the soft sound of her breathing, the warm glow of her skin. "Marcus," she said quietly as they navigated a particularly narrow passage, "there's something else I must tell you." He heard the seriousness in her tone and stopped to face her. "What is it?" "My people have abilities beyond what you've seen. The healing touch, the memory sharing. But I have something more. Something that makes me valuable to Vorkane." She held up her hands, and Marcus watched in amazement as light began to gather between her palms. Not the soft luminescence of her skin, but something brighter, more focused. The light pulsed and grew until it formed a small star floating in the air between them. "I can create pure energy," she explained, the star casting dancing shadows on the cave walls. "Enough to power cities or destroy armies. It's why my father thought I would be valuable to the Shadow Realm. It's why Vorkane will never stop hunting me." Marcus stared at the floating star, understanding flooding through him. She wasn't just a runaway princess. She was potentially one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. "Can you fight them?" he asked. Zafira let the star dissolve, darkness returning to the tunnel. "I can defend us. Yes, but using my power makes me easier to track. It's like lighting a beacon for them to follow." A distant rumble echoed through the cave system. The hunters had landed. "They're here," Zafira whispered. Pressing closer to Marcus in the darkness, he wrapped his arms around her, feeling her trembling against him. "Then we go deeper. Find somewhere to wait them out." But as they hurried deeper into the maze of tunnels, Marcus could hear something that made his blood run cold. Footsteps in the darkness behind them? Multiple sets, moving with military precision. The hunters had found the caves. "Run," Marcus breathed. Grabbing Zafira's hand, they plunged deeper into the mountain, their footsteps echoing off the stone walls. Behind them, the pursuit grew closer. Harsh voices called out in the musical language of Zafira's people. But there was nothing beautiful about these sounds. They were filled with threat and malice. Marcus pulled Zafira into a side passage, pressing her against the wall as the hunters passed by their hiding spot. In the darkness, they clung to each other, hearts pounding, barely daring to breathe. "I won't let them take you," Marcus whispered against her ear. "And I won't let them hurt you," she replied, her voice fierce with determination. The hunt had begun in earnest, but they weren't giving up without a fight. Deep in the heart of the mountain, Marcus and Zafira found themselves trapped. The cave they had fled to ended in a vast chamber with no other exits. The sound of approaching hunters echoed from the tunnel behind them. Growing closer with each passing second, "There's nowhere else to run," Marcus said. His voice, heavy with the realization, Sheb stepped away from him, her skin beginning to glow brighter. "Then we make our stand here, Zafira." "No," Marcus reached for her. You said using your power would make you easier to track. They've already found us, she replied, her eyes blazing within her fire. And I will not go quietly back to a life of slavery. The first hunter appeared at the cave entrance, his armor gleaming with dark energy. 2 more followed, their weapons crackling with power that made the air itself hum with menace. The leader spoke in the musical language of Nexari, his voice harsh and demanding. Jad. Hep answered in the same language, her tone defiant. Marcus didn't need translation to understand the exchange. They were ordering her to surrender. She was refusing. Princess Saphira, the leader, switched to accented English. You will come with us. Prince Vorkane grows impatient with this chase. I will never marry him, Saphira declared, light beginning to gather around her hands. I choose my own path. The hunter's attention shifted to Marcus. And you, human, have interfered in affairs beyond your understanding. You will die for your foolishness. No, Saphira stepped protectively in front of Marcus. He is innocent in this. He has seen too much. Knows too much. Death is the only option. Marcus felt anger surge through him. These creatures thought they could just take whatever they wanted, destroy whoever got in their way. He had spent his life exploring the peaceful aspects of space. But now he was seeing its darker side. Saphira, he said quietly. Trust me. She looked at him questioningly, but he was already moving. Years of exploration training had taught him to use his environment. And the cave chamber had one significant feature he had noticed earlier. A narrow ledge ran along one wall, leading to what appeared to be a natural chimney in the rock. When I say go, run for that ledge, he whispered. The hunters were advancing now, weapons raised. Marcus grabbed a loose stone from the cave floor and hurled it at the leader. It struck his helmet with a metallic clang, causing him to stumble backward. Go. Saphira didn't hesitate. Light exploded from her hands as she unleashed her power, not an attack, but as a blinding flash that filled the chamber. The hunters cried out, temporarily blinded by the brilliance. Marcus and Saphira ran for the ledge, scrambling up the narrow path as energy bolts began striking the rock around them. The hunters' vision was clearing, and their aim was improving at the top of the chimney. They found what Marcus had hoped. For another tunnel, this one leading upward, toward the mountain's peak. But they also found something else. A dead end. We're trapped, Saphira said, breathing hard. No, Marcus replied, examining the rock above them. Look. The tunnel ended at what appeared to be a natural skylight, a crack in the mountain that let in a shaft of sunlight. It was narrow, but wide enough for them to climb through. Below them, the hunters were scaling the ledge, their shouts growing closer. I can get us through there, Saphira said, understanding immediately. But it will take all my power. I won't be able to defend us afterward. Then we'd better make sure it works the first time. Marcus replied. Saphira placed her hands against the rock ceiling, and light began to pour from her fingers. Not the gentle glow he had grown accustomed to, but blazing energy that cut through stone like a knife through butter. The opening widened, and fresh air rushed into the tunnel. Now, she gasped, her power spent. Marcus lifted her up through the opening first, then pulled himself up after her. They emerged onto the mountain peak just as the hunters reached the bottom of the tunnel, but they weren't alone. A sleek ship hovered above the mountain, its hull gleaming in the sunlight. For a moment, Marcus thought they were caught, but then he saw the markings. Not hunter symbols, but the insignia of the Nexari Light Council. A figure descended from the ship on a beam of pure light. An older alien with the same luminescent skin as Saphira, but his glow was steady, controlled. Ancient Father, Saphira breathed. The Light Council leader looked at his daughter, then at Marcus, then at the hunters emerging from the cave. When he spoke, his voice carried absolute authority. This ends now. What? Followed was a confrontation of powers beyond Marcus's understanding. Light battled shadow in the sky above the mountain, while words were exchanged in rapid Nexari between father and daughter. Finally, the hunters were driven back, their leader speaking urgent words into a communicator before retreating. They will return with more forces. Zephyra's father said in English, his gaze fixed on Marcus. But not today. Father, I won't go back, Zephyra said firmly. I won't marry Vorkane. No, her father replied, surprising them both. You will not. The alliance with the Shadow Realm is broken. Vorkane's true nature has been revealed to all the Light Council. Relief flooded Zephyra's face. But she didn't move from Marcus's side. What happens now? Her father studied them both, his ancient eyes seeing more than just their words. Now you choose your own path. As a true heir to light should, Zephyra took Marcus's hand, their fingers intertwining. Then I choose to stay with him, to explore the galaxy together, to bring light to dark places, and I choose to protect her, Marcus added. To learn from her people and help build bridges between our worlds, the Light Council leader smiled, the expression transforming his stern features. Then let this be the beginning of a new alliance, between light and courage, between your people and ours. As they boarded the council ship, leaving the barren moon behind, Marcus held Zephyra close. She had been abandoned and broken when he found her, left to die in the dirt of a foreign world. But together, they had discovered something stronger than duty, more powerful than fear. They had found love that could cross the stars. In that love, both their worlds would be forever changed.